Hi there fellow guitar slingers, Josh Rogers here. Welcome to amp tutorial number 2. This tutorial is going to be dealing with the graphic EQ section. Let me just explain my setup first. The point of this tutorial is to identify the parameters within page 2, which is over here. It's just an amp, USA clean, and I'm running some cabs in stereo, the 4x12 Citrus 57C. No particular reason. Let me just explain a little bit about my guitar and the settings that I'm using. I'm using my Ibanez RG8527Z. I have it set to the middle position. It's a humbucker. If you have a different kind of configuration, you can probably just set yours to the middle pickup and you might get something similar to me. I'm running it at full volume and my single tone pot is also turned around full. Let's bring up our amp selection, come across to pages. We have basic and then GEQ, graphic equalizer. That's what we're going to be dealing with today. I like to think of EQ bandwidth as a line going up a hill. You have your hill. Although we don't have a sweep setting here, sweep will set where there's a lump on that hill. Boost, which is achieved by either this boost or cut, and when it's at 0 it's called flat. That sets how high that bump is on that hill. You're going up the hill, then you use your boost and that's going to raise that lump or lower it. Q, you can see here, sets the width of that lump. If you're running up that hill and you've got your lump there, the wider the Q is, the wider that lump is. Each of these being like a bump on that hill, and the Q will set how wide that is. So in a constant setting, the frequency doesn't move when you move this up and down. It remains the same. I'm going to put a cool little diagram that I found on Wiki and it'll show you exactly what I mean with constant. Sometimes it's hard to visualize exactly what I'm talking about. When we're using constant, as I boost or cut, the bandwidth stays the same. This means you're going to get a precise boost or cut. Let me play something and I'll give you an example of what I mean. I'm going to choose 8-band constant. It's everything set to flat. So I'm going to choose 125, no particular reason, and I'm going to boost that to 5. I'm going to move down to EQ location. If we open it up, we'll see there's two settings, post PA, pre-PA. It positions the graphic EQ. If it's on pre-PA, it's positioning the EQ between the preamp and power amp inside your amp block. If we choose post, it's putting it at the output of the power amp section. I've come to the conclusion that if you're going to disable your power amp, say you're using your own power amp and cab, but you still want to use the EQ from the amp block itself, you would want to use this selection here, pre-PA. You would have this set up before the power amp. Once you've disabled it, of course, you can't use the power amp. You want to be able to use your EQ before you've disabled your power amp, so the signal that you're sending to your power amp has the EQ. If we click here, we have several different types. We have 5 different bands actually. We have 3, 4, 5, 7 and 8. This is called a band. It's set at a frequency. They are set already. If we move to 4, another slider, set at another frequency. 5 gives us 5 sliders. 7 gives us 7. 8 gives us 8. We also have 6 different types. We have a console, passive, mark, constant Q, and variable Q. 3-band console gives you low, mid, and high. This is very similar to what you might find on a mixing desk. 3-band passive, 4-band passive, and then if we skip along a bit further, 5-band passive. We have the same settings here, low, mid, and high. If you click on 4-band passive, you can see that the mids are split to low mids and high mids. 5-band, we have the low mid, mid, high mid. Gives us a few more options in there. Passive EQ, the filters have a fixed loss across all frequencies. So let's just give you a sound demonstration. The passive EQ settings inside the amp block are modeled on analog pedals of the old days. Let's try the 5-band passive. I'm just gonna drop the lows a little bit and maybe pump up a high. 5-band mark. What is that exactly? The mark mimics the EQ found in the Mesa Boogie Mark series. Let's look at USA Clean. You can also find it with USA Lead Plus, USA Bright. That is mark. Constant and variable. If we click on 5-band constant Q, 5 bands come up with these numbers. Constant Q means the bandwidth remains the same irrespective of the slider position. 8-band variable Q. Variable means the bandwidth and the frequencies that are being covered or attenuated or boosted or cut move with the gain. Let's say that bump is getting higher, or we're boosting it, then the footprint is going to get smaller, and as we come down, the bump is going to get wider or flatter. So it's going to spread out and it's going to cover more bandwidth. I like to think about it as those bumps on the hill. Here the bump is getting skinnier, and here the bump is getting fatter. Just check out the graph, you'll understand what I mean. With the variable Q, it's kind of smoother. That's not necessarily a good thing, you know. Sometimes we think smoother and oh yeah, that's exactly what we want. But there are times where you might just want to cut in at a certain frequency and you don't want the frequencies around it to be affected too much. That's when you would probably be better off choosing something like constant Q. Then your footprint or your bump, the base of that bump is not going to be so wide, so it's not going to have such an impact on the frequencies that are nearby. Let me just create a standard type of EQ look, so to speak. Here we're taking out a lot of the mids. Now let's listen to that. Sounds a little bit compressed. If we switch that to variable, you can hear it's a lot more sort of muffled. The frequencies aren't quite as clear. Move it back. You can hear it change. I'm just going to put this to opposite, so I'm going to give it a bit of a mid-boost appearance. Completely different characteristic. Not that nice sounding actually. Let's switch it to variable. With setting EQ, I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong. Depending on what you're trying to achieve, there may be a better choice than something else. You know, you don't always have to use the 8-band. Sometimes you can get exactly what you need just from 3. Keep things simple. Just because there are buttons that you can press or sliders that you can slide doesn't mean you have to. Here we go. 3-band console. I'm going to move this up. Let's give it a bit more highs. That's quite a pleasant sound right there. Let's say a little bit more on the boost. Let's move up to 4.6. If you've made some settings up here, they travel across, they're held through all of your choices. As you can see, that's still there. It doesn't matter which one I choose. 4-band, it's there right from the original settings when I was playing here in the 8-band. Just remember that. A couple of terms. If your slider is set to 0, that's called flat. It's not boosted and it's not cut. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you've gained some knowledge and you've enjoyed this tutorial, please give me a big thumbs up. Leave a comment. I always appreciate people's comments. Amp tutorial number 3 will be coming up, and that will be to do with the preamp. So let's just have a look at that. Wow, it's pretty mighty. There's a lot of stuff in there to learn. It's been great hanging out with you today. As you know, let your fingers fly.